Hello and welcome to episode 337 of Geektown Radio. I am back this week with...
To Infinity and Beyond!
Matt, how are you doing?
I'm good, David. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Good to have you back on for another week. I was trying to get Bex on this week, but she's snowed under with work again and Gray's busy. So it's Matt again this week, which is no bad thing. So what have you been up to since last week?
First of all, I really like my intro. It automatically makes me smile. So, yeah, that will happen at the start of every Geektown episode that I'm on, which is good. None of you can see me smiling, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
So a couple of things I watched recently that I wanted to talk about. Continued with Severance. I got caught up on this week's episode yesterday, which ended with a really, really big cliffhanger, although the week before did as well. So they're really starting to amp things up. I think this one was episode 8 and there's 10, I think. So they're starting to get to that point of the season where questions are starting to be answered with some good payoffs and stuff, which makes for some like really strange and really kind of just interesting scenes. And there was a particular thing that happened to a character and you're sitting there trying to work out like, okay, if that's happened to them, that means that, but what does that mean for, I can't get into it because it's obviously big spoiler stuff, but it was to do with the actual Severance thing, because the show's kind of giving you these hints and you're like, right, but how does like that work? And so it was quite cool. So that's been really, really good. I did try to watch that We Crashed, but I didn't get around to doing that. That's about some rich company that failed or something.
Yes, so, it's about WeWork and the failure of WeWork, which is a thing that sort of rents out office space. Severance, I have watched the first episode of Severance and I really enjoyed it, and I just haven't got round to getting back into it yet. I've been trying to clear some other things off. I do really want to go back to it, and given it's coming up to the finale, I might try and get back to that this week.
Yeah, that's been really good. Looking forward to probably, I think it is 2 more episodes to go. Some seasons can be 9 episodes, but this is probably 10. Recently started, because I remember I played the video game for this before, which was really good actually, a lot better than I would have thought it would be. And this is DC Superhero Girls. It's got a TV show, I think it's got a film as well, and it's also got a video game. Obviously the game is adapted from the show. Basically, this takes all of the female characters from DC. So you've got all your main ones: Wonder Woman, Batgirl, Supergirl, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, a bunch of the other ones. I think Jessica, whatever her name is, the Green Lantern character, got her as well. It does have Lex Luthor in the story. He's kind of one of the only male characters, although Hal Jordan pops up now and again for certain different things. But yeah, basically this follows teenage versions of these characters. So they've still got kind of the core of the characters in there, but they're sort of just teenage versions, which is interesting because when you look at some of the origins of these characters, it doesn't quite work that way in their origin. It also goes for something very kind of fun and family friendly and all that sort of thing. It's a very kind of like, I suppose you could say, fluffy sort of fun show, even more so than what a kind of Supergirl or a Flash can be. But it's quite a lot of surprising amount of fun and just seeing different iterations of these characters. What I've found at the moment, there's a first season on Netflix, which is 52 episodes, but the episodes are about 15 minutes. Some of them are like 10 minutes. Yeah. So they're quite quick to go through. I've watched about 6 of them so far. It's just these kind of fun adventures with these versions of the character, which is interesting because as soon as I kind of started the show, I was like, okay, I'm clearly not the target audience, but it still really works for me watching it and stuff, I guess. That doesn't mean I'm not supposed to watch the show. It's just, it's clearly aiming at a very, very young audience to try to get them into this genre, which is kind of fun. But I played the game a while ago. The game's only available on Switch, and it basically takes the same thing, but you can control these characters and obviously fight as them and everything. This is a surprisingly good game. Have you found any of this at all? I know some of it was floating around on Now before.
Yeah, I haven't actually watched any of it, but I have heard good things about it. It does seem to have a broader appeal than maybe it looks like it should on the surface. So that's good. I know because somebody was asking about it, and I looked it up about when it was coming back onto Netflix, I think. I remember somebody asking a question about it. So it's good that they've managed to kind of work it so it's got a wider appeal than the sort of obviously tween audience that he's possibly originally aimed at.
Yeah, it's just funny to see some of the characters, the way that they are and everything. So it was cool. The other thing I've returned to recently, because I had to skip a couple of seasons of this show, and I'll explain why in a minute. It's called Archer.
Yes.
That's also available on Netflix. I think that's an FX or FXX show. They switched it around a couple of times. And it's essentially a James Bond spoof, which at times takes itself seriously, but for the most part, even Archer as a character is kind of loose and tries not to get himself killed and that kind of thing. It's a very, very fun show. There's I think there's 12 seasons now. I'm on season 11, and it's been going for a while. These are like 20-minute episodes. There's about 10 or 15 per season. Seasons kind of differ. That's one that's a lot of fun and quite sort of short. So what happened with the season, this is getting into a bit of a spoiler thing, but this was a spoiler from like a while ago. So in around, I think it was season 7 or 8, Archer died, and when I say died, using air quotes, right?
Yeah.
He died because the way that he died in the situation, you're like, okay, how did he survive that? But he ended up surviving it because at the time, Archer was rumored to have, I think, 2 more seasons or something, and then finish. So the creators and stuff were being asked, like, okay, if you've killed Archer, because it was the creators and everything were very vague as to, like, okay, is Archer actually dead? And they were like, oh, maybe, and we'll see, what we can do, which is kind of the smart way to play it. You don't want to be like, yes, he is dead, or no, he's not dead, because otherwise it takes out the sort of tension. Because even in the scene itself, when he died, it was very kind of vague.
Yeah.
And there was also like a robot clone version of Archer, which was kind of funny.
Yeah.
So then what happened was Archer was in a coma for 2 or 3 seasons, I think. And I realized what they were doing, which is they were just kind of doing these random episodes, which were still good and still fun, but none of it really kind of counted. So I ended up, I watched a full season of one of those, and then they did it again. And I thought, I'm going to kind of wait until Archer just comes out of the coma if he does. So I left the show alone for a couple of years. And then I read just somewhere about like, season premiere, Archer's out of his coma. And then what I did was watch like the last episode from the previous season to see when he wakes up and what happens in that scene. And then the next season, which is the one that I'm on, season 11, is him actually out of his coma, awake, and then continuing with stuff. So I'm not quite sure why they took so long to do that and everything. And the show's gone about 2 or 3 seasons past where they thought it was going to end, which is interesting as well. So very kind of strange, interesting, fun situation. But the show's as good as it was before. It did have one of the voice actors pass away in a previous, the guy that voiced Woodhouse, which is basically Archer's like butler sort of family character, like his Alfred sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they did a couple of episodes in this season where they tried to like get a new one and replace him, and one of them betrayed him and stuff. So it was kind of fun, but that was kind of sad that happened as well. But no, it's a good show. I'm glad I'm back with it. It's not something I feel I need to be up to date with. I can kind of just stick an episode on when I feel like it. But have you seen any of this at all?
I haven't. Again, it's another one that I hear a lot of good things around, and I've caught bits of the story of like, them putting Archer in a coma, and I know that wasn't hugely popular, and people were quite glad when they came back. It has been renewed for a 13th season as well. There are 12 seasons already. They've lost a couple of actors, actually. They lost Jessica Walter as well last year. She voiced Mallory Archer in it. It's Archer's mother, and she's the former head of the ISIS, whatever that is. So
yeah, there's a bit of like a spoof thing going on there.
They lost her last year, I know, but it's been around since like 2009, that show. Wow, so it's been around a long time. I hear a lot of very good things about it, but it's not one that I've actually got to myself, unfortunately.
A lot of really good characters. They're a lot of fun and everything. And Archer's a cool character. So yeah. Anyway, that's roughly what I've been up to. David, how about yourself?
Well, I finished Expeditions Rome, which I've been playing through. It's a sort of RPG thing, so there are multiple endings to that game. I got an ending I was satisfied with, so rather than go back and like try out the other endings, I kind of left it there. Definitely worth going to pick up that game. I really, really enjoyed it. I think that's the 3rd Expeditions game they've actually done. I went back and looked. They did one called Expeditions Viking, but it was a few years ago. It doesn't look quite as nice as Expeditions Rome. But as you may be able to tell from my voice, I'm a bit under the weather at the moment. I've got COVID right now. Well, I haven't tested myself today, but so I don't know whether it's actually gone. But I picked up COVID at at some point over the last sort of week. So I was supposed to be at Wales Comic Con this weekend, and obviously, of course, wasn't, because I'm not going to go to Wales Comic Con and spread COVID around. So I was really gutted about, because they had some great guests on, as they always do at Wales Comic Con. They had some brilliant people there. There was David Tennant, Catherine Tate. They got Andy Serkis was there, Sean Pertwee, and eventually Lily, and there was a whole bunch of people. It's an amazing lineup at Wales Comic Con, as it is every year, and I was really gutted I couldn't make it this time. But I was looking for something a little bit more sort of cerebral to play through, because I wasn't feeling great, and discovered Unpacking, which I think Robert had actually mentioned on one of the times he'd been on. It is a very zen puzzle game, essentially. It's kind of a 3D puzzle game, but essentially what you're doing is it's kind of pixel art, and you're presented with a room with a pile of boxes, like somebody's bedroom or office, and you unpack the boxes and like lay out the room. So it's sort of part kind of decoration, but it's also you trying to fit everything into places and make it look nice. So it's sort of decorating, and it's also puzzle game, and it's really chill. And if you're looking for something that's like not too much effort and just something to keep your brain calm, really, really wonderful. And the only issue with it is it's about 15 quid, and it isn't very long. I'm told it's about 3 or 4 hours in total. So, I mean, just be aware of that if you're buying it. But still really, really fun, zen, surprisingly addictive little game. It's called Unpacking, and you can find it on Steam. I don't know if it's on any other platforms, but I really enjoyed just sitting and chilling with that. It was really good.
It sounds like that game that was on Stadia that came to Switch, unless I'm thinking of a different game, but it sounds similar.
Okay.
So, might be.
Yeah, just no sort of frantic, no time limit, nothing like that. It's literally you pulling stuff out of boxes and putting them on shelves or putting them away, which really doesn't sound like it should work for a game. It's surprisingly addictive, though, as a sort of really chill zen experience. So, yeah, that's Unpacking. I'm really enjoying that.
Sometimes if a game feels good in a way to play like that, things like that can be quite good to do.
Yeah, it's a good way of sort of just distracting yourself, I think. He's good. In terms of TV, Peaky Blinders finale, of course, last night. I don't want to go into any huge amount of detail about that, because there will be people that haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Interesting how they left it, because given where the plot line was going for most of this season, I did kind of wonder, because they'd always talked about doing this season and then a film afterwards. So I'd kind of wondered how they were going to approach a film, given where the storyline was going this season. For those of you that have watched the rest of the season will know what I mean by that. That was a really interesting way to end 6 seasons of Peaky Blinders, and whether a film comes along or not, we don't know. I mean, that was always the plan, so we'll see. But it's been a great show throughout, though, and I think it was a good, solid finale episode. Couple of new shows this week, one of them being Hacks, which I've been quite looking forward to, because it's won a whole bunch of awards, that show, and I really like the look of it because of who was involved. It's Gene Smart in the lead role, and it's about this aging Vegas comedian who's sort of a legendary stand-up comic, but is also struggling to maintain her relevance. The boss of the casino where she's playing at this Vegas run is threatening to cut the amount of dates down, because he wants to bring in this sort of a cappella boy band to bring in a younger audience. So she's struggling to maintain that, and there is this young comedy writer who's got cancelled because of a tweet. They both have the same agent, and the agent really forces the writer onto the comic to sort of try and get them to work together, because one needs rescuing and the other one needs the work. So they end up sort of in this dysfunctional relationship. It's really well put together. It's very, very funny. It's Gene Smart as the older comedian, Hannah Enbinder as the comedy writer are the two sort of main people involved in it. They're really good. They're very funny. They kind of bounce off each other well. Jean Smart, you'll know from things like Watchmen and a whole bunch of other things. She's just great in this as that sort of acerbic older comedian. Just very, very well put together. Really enjoyable. It's all on Prime Video right now if you want to go and watch it. Definitely one I would highly recommend that it's worth going to look up. They're only sort of half-hour episodes as well, so it's not very long.
Remember Martha and Logan from 24? She was Martha, wasn't she?
Yes, she was Martha.
That was a legendary couple that in the end wanted to kill each other.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. No, Jean Smart,
she's brilliant.
She is brilliant, yes. So that's all on Prime Video if you want to go and catch the first season of that now. The other thing, of course, was Moon Knight, which dropped this week. Have you caught this yet?
I did, and then I shoved my thoughts on it into a chat podcast episode with a bunch of other things.
Oh, yes,
it's a chat podcast,
yeah.
But yeah. No, I really, really enjoyed it. And what I think is really interesting, I mean, I did a whole episode this week just gone talking about MCU's fourth phase, which obviously includes Moon Knight, and just talked about like what I'm really enjoying at the moment, and this includes Moon Knight, is just the different types of characters we're getting, because we've got three examples. Is we've gotten characters like Eternal, Shang-Chi, and Moon Knight who are just very different to anything we've had before. And I know we've had groups like Guardians, which has got like a talking tree and a raccoon and all that kind of stuff, but this, in terms of like the psychological stuff and the memory shifting type thing that's going on, well, not really memory shifting, but you know what I mean, that sort of element, and that coupled together with what else we've had in phase 4, I just really like that, because for a long time I was, you know, hearing a lot of people sort of say like, oh, we're just getting more Avengers films and the MCU is just the same thing, and it's sort of okay, but now we've got these characters, and the Avengers were great to go through and everything, and we really love those characters, but you know, when you go 10 plus years and you've got 28 films or whatever it is, you do eventually need to do, you know, lean into different characters, and Moon Knight's a very interesting one, because I'm usually not really a fan of the sort of like fantasy and reality shift where you can't tell what's real or not. Because obviously a lot of horror films and TV shows sort of do that, and those are my least favorite horror films. But putting something I don't really like into something I do really like, which is the MCU, I thought was a really great combination, and the way that that's played out. Because Steven himself doesn't have like any idea what's going on, and you're trying to figure it out as well. So I thought it was really good.
I think that's what's been the genius about how they did this with the opening episode, because they're introducing you to a new character, and you know, the whole thing about Moon Knight is the fact that he has this dissociative identity disorder. So there are multiple personalities going on within this one person, and you're introduced to Oscar Isaacs as Stephen Grant, who is this mild-mannered British gift shop employee at a museum, and you're seeing everything through his eyes. So you've got these wonderful sequences where he knows that there is something going on, and he knows that he kind of disappears and walks. So he's strapping himself to his bed at night to, you know, and kind of double bolting his door and putting tape over it to check whether he's been out and all that sort of thing. So he's obviously aware that he wanders at night, but clearly this is sort of getting worse for him. But you're seeing everything from his point of view, not from the bits where he goes. So there is bits where he's like driving along in a truck and there's this car chase, and you're having him fall out of his Steve personality. Rather than show you what happens when it switches, you join it again when the Stephen personality comes back and there's sort of blood on his face and he's holding a gun. And you know, I like the way they stuck that together. I thought that was a really clever way of introducing the sort of confusion of that character. Really amazingly interesting, and like you say, very different to anything else we've had in the MCU so far. I thought it was a really solid, well put together opening episode. I'm very, very interested to see where that goes, because I don't know how many episodes are in this. I don't know whether it's 6 or 8.
I think it's 6. That's what I heard.
Yeah,
I might be wrong.
I suspect it's probably 6. They usually are these. But yeah, I really, really like that opening episode. Yes, it's 6 episodes, I've just noticed. But yeah, I really like that opening episode. I think it's very, very interesting. And it's a darker character as well for the MCU, which I think is something that they sort of need. And, some of the things that happened off screen in that opening episode were particularly quite brutal. You just don't see them, which also helps as well, because obviously, the rating thing in there. I thought that was really, really good. And Ethan Hawke, of course, playing the bad guy in this as well, which is a nice name to have in there. So very, very good. I didn't realise that. The voice that you're hearing in his head is F. Murray Abraham, who's a wonderful, wonderful actor. Mythic Quest. He plays the old doddery writer in Mythic Quest. And that's the person doing the voice of the person that's sort of talking to Stephen in his head as well. Which I hadn't realised. So, he's been in a bunch of films, and Last Action Hero, Amadeus, and Homeland he was in as well. So wonderful, wonderful actor. But he's the voice in Stephen's head.
Cool. Yeah, he's a good actor.
One episode down. I'm really looking forward to the rest of that. I'm very excited to see where that goes, because I think it's a really interesting, different addition to the MCU.
I just can't wait for the next section of like going from this to Doctor Strange, and then like something a bit more in the tone of maybe Stargirl with Miss Marvel after, doing the whole multiverse of madness thing and everything. So yeah, I'm looking forward to all of it.
Yeah, definitely. So that's all the stuff we've been doing this week. We'll move on to some TV and film news. So we kick off the TV and film news with the renewals, cancellations and pickups. There are, both really ending more than cancellations, actually. One is Chesapeake Shores, which is a Hallmark Channel show, runs on Netflix internationally. That's going to end on its 6th season, they've said. And Top Boy has been renewed for one more final season, which is either season 3 or season 5, depending on how you're counting it. It's the 3rd Netflix season, but it's the 5th season overall. So that will be its final season. And both of those, I'm not sure with Chesapeake Shores, but certainly with Top Boy, that seems to be more of a story decision than any form of cancellation as such. On the renewal side, we had quite a bunch from the networks. The Rookie has been renewed for a 5th season, and The Good Doctor has been renewed for a 6th season, those both by ABC, which is no great shock that both of those have got renewed, particularly with The Rookie, as they're working on a spin-off from that as a sort of the oldest FBI recruit, I think is what they're doing for that, which is going to be airing as a backdoor pilot. And there's that, and The Good Doctor's still getting solid ratings, so wasn't overly shocked that both of those got picked up for new seasons. NCIS, NCIS LA, and NCIS Hawaii have all been renewed by CBS for their new seasons. I think that ties NCIS for 3rd place with Gunsmoke as the longest running scripted drama on US TV. They're still, I think the LA Laws are still beating it at the moment. They've got 1st and 2nd place, but so that's good. Hawaii still doesn't have a UK broadcaster. LA is airing on Sky Max, and NCIS starts, I think, this week on Disney Plus. So we are getting most of those over here. I hope somebody picks up Hawaii, because that would seem like a natural fit for Sky, but we'll see.
Yep.
In pickups and other news, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, they announced surprisingly this week, they've actually moved it back by a couple of days. Not given a reason for this, but they moved it from the Wednesday premiere date to Friday. So it's going to be Friday the 27th of May for that now. But to make up for the fact that it's now going to be a couple of days later than they originally said, they're dropping the first 2 episodes together. And then the subsequent episodes will be dropping on Wednesdays. So it means there's a shorter gap between episode 2 and 3 as well. So you're getting like the first 3 episodes within a few days of each other, which is basically half the series. So yeah, that's, I don't know what the reason is for them moving it, but the interesting thing is it does put it directly up against Stranger Things, which is also out on that Friday. So don't know why they made that decision, but they did. So there you go. It's a holiday weekend in a lot of places, I think. So there's a lot of people that are going to be kind of watching both, I would think anyway. But yeah, Obi-Wan going out on Friday, the 27th of May, and that's going to be the first 2 episodes and then following episodes on the Wednesday. Very much looking forward to that dropping. There's a new pickup on the 11th of April. That's Monday. That's The Neighborhood, which has been picked up by E4 and in random E4 scheduling style. Monday, the 11th of April, going out at 3 p.m. with 2 episodes daily, so 3 and 3:30, and it's a comedy. Does Cedric the Entertainer and Max Greenfield. Max Greenfield, you'll know from, he was in Ugly Betty and in New Girl as well. And Max plays the nicest guy in the Midwest who moves his family to a tough neighborhood in LA. So he's sort of the fish out of water who's like nice and lovely to everybody and very neighbourly, and he's surrounded by people in this neighbourhood that are like, who the hell is this guy? And Cedric the Entertainer is one of those neighbours. It's got Beth Beers in it as well, who you'll know from Two Broke Girls. So if you like those sort of sitcoms, it's one of those kind of standard network US sitcoms, but it's been doing fairly well. I think it's on 4 or 5 seasons in the US already, but season 1 of that landing on E4, airing daily from 3 p.m. from Monday the 11th of April.
I've been missing that kind of Friends, Big Bang type of show. I really do like those, and I've watched most of them, most of the ones that I'm aware of anyway. The only one I haven't really watched is maybe Seinfeld that I could try out.
Yes.
I think that's on all 4, so maybe I should look at that one, which I know is a bit older than the other ones, but
yeah, definitely worth working your way through Seinfeld if you've never done it.
Max Greenfield is really good in New Girl, so yeah, I'll be taking a bit of a look at this.
Yes,
that'll be good.
There is a new show coming to IMDb TV, which is called Almost Paradise. That is coming to IMDb TV in the UK on Friday the 15th of April. Stars Christian Kane, who is from Librarians. I think he was it Buffy or Angel? He was one of those. But Librarians and Leverage is probably the thing that he's known for. And the show is from Dean Devlin, who has done Leverage and Librarians and those sort of dramas, so you'll know him from that. I think he was involved in Stargate SG-1 as well, I seem to remember. Stars Kane as Alex Walker, who is a former US DEA agent who, after his partner's betrayal and life-threatening battle with hypertension, is forced to take early retirement and relocates to a small tropical island in the Philippines. Once the DEA's most resourceful undercover operative, Walker now runs the gift shop at the island's luxury resort hotel. Well, he manages to transition from top DEA agent to laid-back islander. The luxury resort has attracted the rich and powerful and sometimes criminal elite from around the world, often on a collision course with Alex. Despite his best efforts to begin a tranquil new life, he's pulled back into a world of dangerous people and deadly situations, either through his friends at the local police station or running into people from his old life. The problem is that he likes it. So it sounds like it could be a sort of Hawaii Five-O-esque kind of fun, that sort of action drama-y sort of thing. But it sounds like it could be quite fun, that. But it's called Almost Paradise. It's on IMDb TV, which, remember, is free. It's the streaming service which you can get on Amazon. So you've got to sign up for an Amazon account, but you don't have to be an Amazon Prime customer. You can just go up and sign on there and go and watch IMDb TV for free on there. Couple of other new air dates. We've also got Doctor Who Legend of the Sea Devils, which is the penultimate outing for Jodie as the Doctor. That is premiering Easter Sunday, which is the 17th of April on BBC One and iPlayer. We haven't got a time for that yet, but it'll be 7 o'clock-ish, I think.
That is my birthday.
Yes, and that is your birthday as well. We're actually entering the period
on Easter
where
Sunday.
Yes, yeah. It's all the co-host birthdays over the next sort of 3 weeks. So, I mean, we knew it was coming over Easter, so we knew it was likely going to be Easter Sunday. So, no great surprise that's landing. But yes, that's Doctor Who Legends of the Sea Devils. That's coming Easter Sunday.
I never saw those other 6 episodes. You know, the ones that went out over like Christmas or whatever?
The Flux. Yes, the Flux episode. Yes.
Yeah. How many of those were there? Were there 6?
I think there were 6, yes.
I'll have to try and catch those because I do want to see out Jodie Comer's.
Don't mean Jodie Comer, you mean Jodie Whittaker.
That's what I mean, yes, Jodie Whittaker. Jodie Comer would make a decent Doctor as well.
She would,
but Jodie Whittaker's time, because I did like her. I mean, the writing may not have always quite been there, but I really liked her as a Doctor. So, yeah. She
was good. It'd be interesting to see who they pick next, and I wish she'd had some better writing because she was great in the role. It's just the writing let her down in
Maybe
places.
You can pick Jodie Comer.
Maybe you could. Over on Prime Video, they've announced a launch date for 10%, which is the 28th of April. This is the British remake of the French show Call My Agent. This is a British version of it. It's from the guy that wrote things like W1A. So that gives you the idea of the kind of humour that they're going for in it. And obviously, whereas the French series is set in a celebrity talent agency in Paris, this has moved everything to the UK. They've got a bunch of guest stars showing up. It looks like it's going to be really fun and really funny. There is a trailer up on the website for that, but that's 10% date, and that's arriving on the 28th of April on Prime Video. And we also have a premiere date for House of the Dragon, which of course is the Game of Thrones prequel. That is coming Monday, the 22nd of August. It'll air 2 a.m. They're simulcasting it as usual with the US. That's going to be on Sky Atlantic and Now, and then it'll get repeat airing in the evening as well. But it will be going out day and time with the US. So 22nd of August at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, been doing that for a while, haven't they, for some of the HBO shows?
Yeah, for some of the big HBO shows, yeah.
Yeah, Game of Thrones is coming back. Well, this show at least is anyway. As I've said before, I'm looking forward to getting back into this world, and it won't be too long to wait.
Yeah, be interesting to see how it's received, and the cast list for this show is huge. Mind you, it's interesting, they're launching this a couple of weeks before the launch of the Lord of the Rings series.
Yeah.
So there is going to be a point where the pair of them kind of go head to head, which is going to be interesting, but we'll see. But, you know, two different worlds and two quite beloved worlds, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, that's House of the Dragon, the 22nd of August at 2 a.m. That is landing. On to some other bits and pieces of news. The Umbrella Academy put out a tweet this week introducing Elliot Page as Victor Hargreaves in the 3rd season, which is coming up relatively soon. Obviously, as many of you will know, because we've talked about it before, Elliot Page, who plays Vanya on the series, came out as transgender and non-binary in December 2020. The show at that point had already been renewed for a 3rd season, so this did sort of beg the question what was going to happen with the character of Vanya, because she was very clearly there at the end of the cliffhanger finale of the 2nd season. So we did wonder how they were going to handle this, and whether Elliot was just going to carry on playing Vanya, or whether they were going to incorporate the transition somewhere into the show. It's still not entirely clear what they're doing, other than Elliot tweeted this photo out. All it said on it was "Meet Victor Hargreaves." So a lot of the reports are saying, oh, Vanya's transitioning, but then you're also dealing with a show that has a lot of messing around with timelines which have altered histories. You've got superheroes in it, you've got multiple versions of characters. It is entirely possible that Vanya is still there, or Vanya gets killed off and Victor comes in to replace her, or it could be that they have actually transitioned the character. We don't know. All we know is that Elliot is playing a character called Victor on the show. So I'm glad they found some way to introduce it. If you're wondering where we left things, the entire gang had basically come back from solving one doomsday, hoping that they were back in the right timeline, only to land in what they thought was the right timeline and be presented by this group called the Sparrow Academy, which was a sort of alternate and slightly cooler version of them by the looks of things. So I'm really interested to see where they go with that. I love the show. It's really well put together. So
it's brilliant. Yeah. Really good to see that they've kind of done this and everything. We've asked the question for a long, because it's been 2 years since the show's been on, because I don't remember it airing a season last year, because otherwise it probably would have been on my list, and I don't remember doing that. You know, the way that Elliot came out and just sort of posted the photo on Instagram, I thought was cool, and the way that he's been supported, it's been great. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they do that, because we'd seen a couple of photos before of that very end scene.
Yeah.
But it was Elliot's, I'll just say, previous look, appearance. Obviously, it's probably the photo of that same filmed scene. So, I mean, what I think, that because we don't know what the show will do yet, because obviously, as you said, it's got timey-wimey stuff, because they've time traveled and all sorts of things. So there's lots of possibilities. I think what makes sense for them to do, and what they might do, is if you kind of just start the season with Victor instead of obviously Vanya, and then the character has transitioned, but they deal with it in kind of an interesting way.
Well,
it depends how much time and screen time they're going to give to mentioning the character transitioning, if that is what's happened.
Yeah, that does depend whether they have transitioned Vanya into Victor, or whether they're using some other sort of comic booky trope, like the fact that the timelines have changed to do it.
Right.
So we'll have to kind of wait and see to see exactly how they've done that. I mean, I'm sure they've consulted with Elliot on what they do and how they handle it, because he's there.
That's a very important thing to do.
And they've even got to the point of they went back and re-edited all the credits and stuff. So, I mean, I'm sure they'll have handled very carefully and in consultation with Elliot. So we'll see what actually comes out of this. But like I say, you know, we don't know that it's actually a transition for the character of Vanya or not. not. Vanya may still be in there at the moment as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how Victor gets introduced.
Because even if they just start season 3, episode 1, and Victor is just there and they don't feel the need to like go into specifics on it, and everyone just addresses Victor as Victor, and then that's that, I still think that'll be fine. I mean, there might be some audience members that maybe aren't quite so aware of what's happened, and they might be like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah, I think it would need explaining at some point.
Yeah.
You know, because unless there's some sort of time jump, because if you're picking up exactly where we left off, Vanya was in that final scene, and we don't know. I mean, there may be a time jump in between, but we'll have to see, because Vanya was a character on that show. So I don't know. We'll have to see how they handle it.
But the important part is, you know, everything looks like it's going well. I've seen a lot of support towards Elliot, both from fans like us of the show and everything, and fans of Elliot, both from the cast, crew, and the show itself, like on Twitter and stuff. I've seen a lot of cheering on for the character and for Elliot. And at the end of the day, as long as the people involved are happy with what's going on and Elliot is happy with the results of what's been decided, then that's ultimately what matters. I'm wishing Elliot well, and I look forward to seeing him in this new season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which isn't too far away. It's like June something, isn't it?
June 22nd for the new season. So
June's a busy month this year.
It is
strange. It isn't usually.
Yeah.
So
it is.
Yeah.
Moving on to another show coming to Amazon, they have added a new cast member to their Fallout series, which this Fallout series, based obviously on the video games, comes from Kilter Films, this is the company owned by Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, who of course made Westworld. I'm sure many of you know the Fallout world. It's a sort of post-apocalyptic alt history world where there was sort of this nuclear apocalypse. In the 40s, they sort of embraced this sort of nuclear world, and things sort of moved forward, and there ended up being a nuclear war in 2077. So you're in the future, but it's a slight different sort of background alt history. But a bunch of people survived by hiding out in bunkers, and then in the video games, what you're mainly playing is somebody who emerges from one of those bunkers for the first time to explore life in the outside world. We don't know exactly what tack they're taking with the TV series, but I mean, presumably the Vaults are going to have something to do with it. They've announced a new cast member. It's somebody called Ella Purnell. She's been in a few different things. She's British. She was in Yellow Jackets, the Showtime series. She was also in Belgravia, the ITV miniseries. She was in Bittersweet as well, which was a Star series. She also provides the voices for the character of Gwyn in Star Trek Prodigy and Jinx in Arcane as well. We don't know exactly who they're playing, but she's believed to be the lead character, who's called Jean, a young woman with a can-do attitude who may be hiding a dangerous secret. The only other casting we've had for the show is Walton Goggins, who people all know from things like Justified, who is said to be playing a ghoul, ghouls being one of the mutated humans who survived outside the bunkers but have got kind of very melty faces and stuff. But I'm really interested to see what they're doing in this, because I think the Fallout world's a fascinating world, and Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy are a really interesting pair of people to be involved behind it. So presumably this character's probably a Vault Dweller, I imagine.
I thought so if they were the main character, yeah. Me and Robert were talking about this last night on the Gaming Talk podcast. Obviously, it relates to Fallout. So she played the daughter in Army of the Dead, which was the Zack Snyder zombie film, which we debated as to how good that film is, because I liked it and he didn't. So, but there you go. Because sometimes he doesn't quite like the sort of long Zack Snyder films with some slow motion and stuff, but I like that sort of stuff. Yeah, she was really good in that film. That's kind of one of the things I definitely recognize her from. I mean, I've seen the first 2 episodes of Arcane, which was a pretty good show. But yeah, it looks like this is coming together quite nicely. I've got 2 very good cast members so far. And I was also saying to Robert as well, it seems like everybody's trying to get their own masked, suited kind of hero character, because you've got The Mandalorian on obviously Disney, and then you've got the Halo series over on Paramount, and now you've got this Fallout thing over on, was it Amazon? Yeah. So yeah, wonder who will try and kind of do their masked hero character next. Well, I mean, technically Disney's got 2 of them, because they've got both as well. Yeah. But I mean, at least with Fallout, there is a sort of iconic, the power armor iconic helmet thing, but they don't you tend to be in and out of those things quite a lot, so it's not sort of permanently masked in this particular case. But yes, I know the sort of thing you mean. It's an interesting addition. I mean, really intrigued to see that. That should be quite good. Sticking with sort of post-apocalyptic worlds, Snowpiercer, which is beginning production on its 4th season, has added a couple of new cast
cast members, one of which will be very familiar with most people. They've added Clark Gregg and Michael Aronoff are the two new cast members that are joining the full season. That had its season 3 finale this week, which ended really, really well. Not so much on a cliffhanger as such, but definitely setting things up for something slightly different on season 4.
Snowpiercer.
Yeah, so definitely setting things up for something slightly different on season 4. Snowpiercer, of course, if you haven't seen it, it's all on Netflix. Basically, the idea is the original setup for it is there is a train which holds the remnants of humanity, which keeps them alive by driving around the world because of the fact that the temperature of the world has dropped to a level where it's not survivable outside. So everything's covered in snow and it's freezing cold, and there is this train that perpetually moves around the globe as a way of keeping everybody kind of safe and warm. That's the setup for it. And there is a sort of class struggle going on in the train, and we're now 3 seasons in, so obviously that has changed and advanced as you've gone through it. 4th season begins production in Vancouver this week. Clark Gregg has joined, of course, best known as Agent Coulson from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yep. I mean, I think that's probably what most people will know him from. Aronoff is been in a whole bunch of different things. The Americans, Madam Secretary, Billions, The Blacklist. He played, there was sort of a shady kind of couple that people might know from The Blacklist, who kind of a comedy sidekick that Red used to use on and off. He's also in the upcoming Showtime anthology series, The First Lady, as well. So, I mean, he's been in a whole bunch of things. So he's one of those faces that you'll probably recognize. There is a change behind the camera as well. Paul Zabinski, I think his name is, who worked on Lost and on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., is taking over as showrunner on the 4th season as well. I think this is the second time they've changed the showrunner, because the original showrunner is Josh Freeman, and then there was a guy called Graham Mason who's done the last couple of seasons as well. So going to be some changes going on in there, but the showrunner change isn't because of anything negative. I think it's just people are moving on. And,
sometimes that just happens. Creative differences. I don't think it's even creative differences. I think it's just a case of they've got other projects and they need to move on to something. And, I think that's all it's been. In this particular case, it's just somebody else is stepping in because Graham wants to go off and do something. So both Michael and Clark, great actors. I'm glad Clark's doing something that's sort of outside the MCU. It's nice to see him in something a bit different. It's got some good cast on Snowpiercer as well. It's been a really great show. Have you watched any of that? I haven't. It does sound very interesting. I know Gray watches it. I think Robert does. Yeah. I can't remember if Robert said he has, but I know you and Gray have talked about it before. I think Bex has said that she watched it.
Yes, Bex does watch it, yeah.
So maybe I'm the only Geektown host that doesn't. I don't know.
You really should
watch it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not entirely sure, but yes, it's definitely one you should get into.
I'm the odd one out.
Yeah, very, very good cast and really interesting story. It's very well put together.
But yeah, I will. I think I've seen like a trailer and it looked kind of interesting. It's just obviously finding the time with all the other shows and whatnot. But yeah, there's a few seasons obviously waiting there for me. Yeah, it's good to see Clark Gregg in something else. He's been doing the Coulson role since 2012. Was it Avengers?
Yeah, something like that. He was in? If not before then, yeah. Might
have been in one of the Iron Man films or something. But obviously he had a big event in the Avengers film. But no, it sounds interesting. Clark Gregg is pretty good. I know that Sean Bean is in the show, isn't he?
Yes, Sean Bean is in the show and has survived for longer than you might initially expect. Got Steve Ogg in it as well.
Oh, right, from Grand Theft Auto and Walking Dead.
Yes,
yeah.
So good.
Who basically plays Trevor twice.
Yeah,
so
yeah. So yeah,
cool. So yeah, I'll have to check it out at some point. And when I do, I'll probably talk about it on here.
Yeah,
so
yeah, definitely one worth going to look at. That's all the news we've got for this week. Just some time for the highlights for next week on TV. So, highlights for next week. We have Raised by Wolves returning for its second season, which I'm very much looking forward to. So, that's on Sky Atlantic the 6th of April at 9 p.m. I'm looking forward to that coming back. The first season of that was really good, but it's such a long time ago that you kind of like, where was I? What happened at the end of that? So, yes, I might have to go and look a recap video up for Raised by Wolves. But, yeah.
I don't remember like all the details of season 1, but I do remember how it ended.
Yeah.
Which was kind of strange, but it's kind of a strange show.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So, that's Raised by Wolves Season 2, Sky Atlantic, 6th of April at 9 p.m. NCIS Season 19 finally lands on Disney+. That's on the 6th of April, so that is returning on Disney+. Annoyingly, they're dropping it out weekly, despite the fact that most of it, if not all of it, has now gone out in the US, but that's how they're doing it, so there you go.
Okay.
A League of Their Own road trip edition. This is called Dingle to Dover. That's the League of Their Own guys on a road trip, and that's on Sky Max on the 7th of April at 9 p.m. Gentleman Jack returns after a very long break. I think it was like 2019, the first season of that. But Gentleman Jack is back. That is on BBC One. That's on the 10th of April at 9 p.m. The Neighbourhood, as we mentioned earlier, that's coming on E4 at the 11th of April at 3 p.m. Hard Sell, which we talked about a few weeks ago, which is the Catherine Tate series, which she writes, directs, and stars in multiple roles. It's set in a woman's prison. That's starting on Netflix on the 12th of April.
I like prison shows. I really like Prison Break, Wentworth, and Orange is the New Black. But
yeah, it's not that. It's going to be full-blown comedy.
I'm not a fan of like Catherine Tate, so
yeah, there you go. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that one's going to be for me.
Yeah. Julia is coming onto Sky Atlantic. That's on the 12th of April. That stars Sarah Lancaster and David Hyde Pierce in a drama inspired by Julia Child's extraordinary life and her long-running television show, The French Chef. I think that's a HBO series, which obviously comes on Sky Atlantic, so there's that. And Derry Girls, the long-awaited return for the third and final season of that. That's on the 12th of April at 9:15 on Channel 4. That's all the stuff coming for the next week, as well as all the stuff that's already out, like, new episodes of Moon Knight and stuff. So it's going to be a good week for TV. If people want to find more about you, where can they find you?
You can find my podcast over on entertainmenttalk.org. The TV, video games, films, and Moon Knight podcast. Moon Knight returned at the weekend. We're basically just waiting for the season to finish now because we need a new squad, basically, and a new manager because we still don't have a proper manager. But we'll see how all that goes. Done some, obviously, reviews recently. We're still doing the Walking Dead podcast. We're still doing Gaming Talk Weekly. We talked about the big change to PlayStation Plus, which has got me very excited. Talked about that yesterday. If you want to hear me do a very glowing review of something, I reviewed the third season of Servant recently, which I've mentioned watching that a few times on here, but that finished, and very, very good show. That's putting it lightly, but I really enjoyed that. Reviewed a bunch of films, a film called Deep Water as well, which has got Ana de Armas and Ben Affleck in it. Talked about that. That's on Amazon Prime if you want to watch that in the UK. And yeah, a bunch of other discussion podcasts and things like that. As I said, I did a big chat podcast episode, and I also did a podcast on the MCU's fourth phase, so you can check that stuff out. You can follow me on Twitch if you'd like to, at eTalkUK, and you can find those streams archived later with a bunch of game clips and stuff on my YouTube channel, which is called Entertainment Talk Plays, so you can find all those things there.
Yep, so go and check that out over on entertainmenttalk.org. For other people involved in the show, you can go and find Bex on twitch.tv/TrithDeBytes. That's BYTES. You can go and watch her streams, which are sort of pretty much daily over there. There's a schedule up if you go and check that link out. And if you want to see her in real, actual life, she's going to be at Insomnia, the gaming festival in Birmingham, in a couple of weeks. So you can go and see her actually up on stage. I think she's doing the show that she does with Jason Bradbury. They're doing that live. She's also comparing, I think, on one of the other stages. So you'll be able to see lots of her if you want to go to the Insomnia Gaming Festival in Birmingham, which is later on in April. So go and check that out. For Daryl, you can go to HollywoodNorthNews.net for all the series that you love, which are shot in Canada. Go and check out him over there. For us, you can go to the website at geektown.co.uk throughout the week and see all the latest air date information. If you want to get in touch with your questions or comments, email us on podcast@geektown.co.uk. Leave a message on the website page. Find us at Geektown on Twitter, on Facebook at facebook.com/Geektown, on YouTube at youtube.com/Geektown, and on Instagram at Geektown UK. That is everything. We shall see you next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.